Good afternoon. Welcome everyone to the Rockland County pre-high holiday security briefing. I'm Ethan Ehrlich, Regional Security Director for the Community Security Initiative. Community Security Initiative is a joint project of the UJA Federation of New York, JCRC of New York, Jewish Federations in North America, and of course the Jewish Federation of Rockland County. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Out of respect for everyone's time on this busy workday and busy week, I'm not going to thank each person individually, but I want to recognize our elected officials, community leaders, law enforcement leaders for joining us today. Any questions for our panelists or for me, use the chat button at the bottom of your Zoom screen to submit your questions. First, I'm going to introduce our panelists. Eldar Ben Yosef is a former special agent in the Israeli Security Agency with 10 years of experience in embassy security. He is the senior security consultant for ISA for the last 10 years, specializing in Jewish nonprofit security. Bill Hayes is the senior regional security director for the Community Security Initiative. He covers Westchester and the Bronx. Bill has over nearly 30 years of police experience, where he served in a wide range of assignments, including patrol officer, certified training instructor, pilot, patrol supervisor, detective bureau commander, and chief of police before retiring in 2014. From 2014 to 2018, he served as the executive director of the Westchester Intelligence Center. He holds a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Mercy College, master's degree in management from Johns Hopkins University, and another master's degree in national security studies from the Naval Postgraduate School. He's also a graduate of the FBI National Academy 226th session. Yossi Margaretin is coordinator for Chaverim of Rockland. Chaverim handles over 250 calls for service per day, with requests ranging from assisting motorists with car trouble to search and rescue operations to crowd and traffic control at large community events. Thank you all for joining us today. The first question is for Chief Hyman. What do police departments in Rockland County plan on doing to secure the community during the high holiday season this year?
All right. Well, first of all, thank you, Ethan, for that impressive sounding bio. I see that you received it from my mother. She sounds like she wrote that. But, a lot of people ask, they hear we're going to do increased patrol, right? Anytime anything happens or there's a significant event going on, we generally say that we're going to put out increased patrols. So people don't, in general, understand what that really means. So what increased patrol is you're going to see police resources at an increased level, but you may not see them with your own eyes. You might not see everything because it's going to involve marked cars. It's going to involve unmarked cars. It's going to involve officers in uniform, officers in plain clothes, additional partnerships between security agencies like yourselves and Chaverim and other community watch groups. There may be additional cameras and video placed in different areas so that law enforcement can observe those. You might see officers on bike patrol. Community members need to see our police out there. They need to see something is being done because the bad actors that might be out there looking to do harm, when we're visible, they're going to move on. But what's really important, and I'd like to stress to the public, is if you see an officer stop in a parking lot of a synagogue or a shul, place of worship, or a yeshiva, a school, and they wave to you or they stop and they get out and they talk to you, that's great. But if one person sees them and doesn't share that information, it does not necessarily get our message across, because we're not really just looking to detect and arrest offenders like might be written in a dictionary. We want to stop the event from happening to begin with. So we also want people to feel safe. And if people feel safe, they can go ahead about their everyday activities. They can worship, they can pray, they can go out and do their shopping because they feel safe. So just think about this situation. An officer drives into a parking lot, says hello to somebody. That person now goes inside and tells a few people they saw the police. That word is going to spread around. People will feel safer, and they'll be able to go about their business. And that's what we really want to occur. Now, Rockland County is unique. Rockland County is the smallest county in the state, right? So in general, the way it's made up is we have 5 towns that have their own police departments. We have 3 villages that have their own police departments. We have a county-wide police department known as the Sheriff's Police Division. We have Rockland County District Attorney investigators who are sworn police officers. We have the New York State Police. We put up drones, a lot of these police departments. Ramapo, as well as some other towns and villages, have officers assigned to the Joint Terrorism Task Force, the Safe Streets, FBI Safe Streets Task Force. We have members on the District Attorney Crime Analysis Center. We have members over at the Rockland County Sheriff's Intel Center. There's a lot going on in Rockland County, a lot of information sharing going on. So this is all very important to keep our citizens safe. People also need to realize that in this county, and I can tell you in the town of Ramapo, we have a town supervisor, Mr. Specht, and Mona Montel, our chief of staff, that support the law enforcement function. And our town board follows right with that philosophy. But I can speak on behalf of the entire county when I tell you that all municipal bodies throughout the county are very interested in keeping Rockland County safe. They want their constituents to be safe, and they back the police department. We have municipal officials that back the police. We have police chiefs that let our officers go out there and do their jobs. It's very, very important, and the public needs to know that we're not scared to do our jobs properly, respectfully, and legally. And we're going to do that to keep our community safe. It's very important to understand the value of partnerships. So we can't do this alone. Nobody can expect the police to keep everyone safe on their own. And we value these partnerships that we have with groups like Chaverim, right? You think about, we might have 10 or 12 police officers out on the road, but you also have 250 volunteers that become our eyes and our ears. And we want them to be trained observers. But it's also very important for people to understand that if you have a law enforcement event going on, something that would normally involve law enforcement, a crime, a suspicious person, a suspicious package, who you call first makes a difference to the outcome of that event. You need to get on the phone with the police department. Call your police, get them rolling to the scene. Then go ahead and call your neighborhood watch groups. You can call friends, you can call family, let them know what's going on if you have to, but make sure the police are rolling, because you're going to generally have a better outcome if the police start heading towards that scene with the resources that we have. Good chance that we're going to be able to stop whatever bad is happening. It's really important for people to understand that. This year I wrote down a couple of numbers. In Rockland County, this came from the Crime Analysis Center. In 24 and 25, there were 23 hate crimes reported between last year and this year so far. Out of those 23 hate crimes, 18 of them were against the Jewish communities. 78% of the hate crimes were against the Jewish community. That's why it's so important for our police officers and our community to work together, to be vigilant, to pay attention to what's going on. In Ramapo alone, we do 15,000 house of worship checks a year. And I can tell you, depending on what town you go to, it's going to be the same percentage for the police department that they have. We've all increased our patrols around houses of worship because we know, even though there's no credible threat, there's obviously a threat towards our community, especially during the high holidays. So it's very important to keep that in mind and to work in partnership with one another. But you're going to see us out there in various capacities, but you will see police out there in an increased capacity this holiday season.
Thank you, Chief. Thanks for your thorough answer. You made a lot of great points there, and we're going to get back to the partnership that we have with Chaverim. I want to ask Bill Hayes a question now. How should the community understand the current threat landscape? When we hear no specific credible threats, does that mean we're in the clear? It's going to be a nice, quiet, high holiday season across the United States or across our area?
So just to give some context, we should all understand that there are domestic and foreign-based threats. Those threats exist towards the community, towards America at large, and towards the Jewish community specifically. Iran has vowed to seek revenge against Jewish and Israeli interests at home and abroad, as well as American interests. And we also have seen lone offenders that have a grievance or an ideological motivation to conduct attacks on their own. And we've seen that play out in places like Washington, D.C., Boulder, Colorado, Governor Shapiro's home during Passover. So when you hear the term, there are no specific credible threats, that doesn't mean that there is no threat. That just means that while we know the environment, there are those in the environment that want to do harm. We just don't have the specifics on the who, the what, the when, the where, the why, and the how. And that doesn't mean that it can't happen or won't happen. It just means we don't know. And no matter how hard we work at our intel desk, as well as our local, state, federal law enforcement partners, sometimes these are it's a challenge to find those specifics. So there is an amount or a certain amount of ambiguity, right, in the environment. We know the threat exists, but it's ambiguous as to the specifics, and that's where that phrase comes from. We just don't know when, the where, and the how. So the answer to that, the response is to be vigilant. If we don't know when the attack is going to come, then we should be vigilant all the time. If you're ready on a blue sky day, right? If we were ready on September 10th, we'd be ready for September 11th. If we're ready for the holidays now, we'll be ready next week if anything should happen. So it's really important to, just because there's an absence of specificity in terms of when and where, it's important to not be complacent and be ready. This is your Super Bowl. You know, this is going to be the time of year where you have the greatest number of attendance in your shuls, and there are lots of unknown guests potentially that might be in your synagogue. So it's important to be on your game and make sure that you're ready, regardless of what the specifics of the threat picture are.
Thanks, Bill. If you had to make a short list, a top 3, top 5 list of aspects that you think a synagogue should be thinking about, what would be on that list? I mean, not to put you on the spot, I'm thinking about access control, right? Controlling who comes in, having locked doors or the ability to lock doors. What else?
A little acronym, VC CARPS, VCCAR, and in no particular order. That's just the way the letters seem to work out according to ChatGPT. But each of these points is important. The V stands for vulnerabilities. You should go through your building now and identify and mitigate on any vulnerabilities that are there. So if you have a door that doesn't lock properly, get it fixed. If you can't get it fixed, consider that you may have to post somebody at that door to mitigate that vulnerability. The 2 C's, communication. Make sure that all of the stakeholders in the planning are communicating with each other, and also figure out the specifics on how you're going to communicate. How will private security contractors communicate with, perhaps there's security volunteers there. If there are police officers hired for special duty, how will you communicate with them? Do you share a radio? And conduct a briefing before each shift, before each service, and to ensure that we're all communicating and these protocols have been worked out. The second C, contingencies. What will you do if? Play the what if game. And it's not just focused on an attack, although that's important, but what about the other things that could happen? What if there's a fire? What if there's a medical emergency? If you're doing outdoor events, what if there is a weather event that interrupts your services? So these things need to be considered as well. A, you touched on it, access control. How do we keep the unauthorized people out of your facility while ensuring that authorized people can enter safely and smoothly? And that comes down to not only hardware, but operating practices. Will you have ticketing for your events? Do you have somebody checking off a list? So what screening process do you have in place in order to ensure you have proper access control? The R, role clarity. Who is serving what role? We've got a lot of stakeholders: private security, law enforcement, volunteers, clergy, facilities personnel. Who are the decision makers? Who is going to be the ultimate authority to perhaps deny entry to somebody that looks suspicious? Who is going to call 911 if there's going to be an emergency? Who is going to be the complainant on a criminal complaint if something happens and the police need somebody to press charges? So those roles need to be clarified in advance. P, positioning, post orders. This is for the security folks. It's important to figure out in advance, where will we place our people in order to address the security needs? How will we protect our perimeter? How will we mitigate the vulnerabilities that might exist in the building or in the environment? So we've got to have the right people in the right place. And then finally, S, silos. Even within an organization, a single institution, the different stakeholders, the different disciplines can somewhat become siloed. So facilities is doing their thing, security is doing their thing, clergy is doing their thing, but they're not communicating with each other in the planning process. So we want to break down those silos and encourage cross-sector or cross-discipline collaboration. So have a planning meeting, not the day of, but have a planning meeting today with all those stakeholders and make sure that everybody knows, facilities is going to be doing this and security is going to be doing that. And what are the clergy's expectations of how the atmosphere is going to be during services. So all of those things, no one is more important to the other, but they all have to work together in order to create an effective layered security posture.
Thanks, Bill. I really like that list. You'll have to share it with me after the webinar.
Certainly.
So you mentioned security personnel and positioning. So I want to segue into a question for Eldar. People often ask us, they ask me, and they probably ask Bill, questions about security guards for events or services. Questions range from how many guards do we need for this event to questions about cost. So Eldar, can you, your company and with your previous experience before that, you've been involved in high profile events. Some of your clients are, we could say controversial or under threat to various degrees. Can you talk about some of the common questions or misconceptions that you see over and over when you talk to clients about securing events or services?
Sure. First of all, thank you for hosting this webinar. When planning an event, I think Bill spoke about it a little bit, planning is extremely important. And the communication with the security company or law enforcement is extremely important in how you plan, and you have to do it ahead. Because you have to go through all the process of the event, the venue. Each venues are very different in terms of point of entry, egress, public, not public, and you have to plan accordingly. You have to know what your threats, where your weak points are, and based on that, you have to decide the size of the security. And of course, the level of security. Each organization, each synagogue has different budgets. You have to find the right combination of the security professionals, the volunteers, staff, ushers, train ushers. Certain synagogues could be the CSS. And then you build a team based on the venue and based on the type of event that you have, right? If it's event, for example, we talk about the high holidays, you want to make sure that you have the setup the appropriate way, right? You want to do the screening, the ticketing. If you do any additional mags, wands, bag check, you want to do it in a place that is secure the most, to the best of your ability. And you want to make sure that people you're allowing in, people you want them to be inside, right? So all these questions are, people ask, do you need more than one? I say, well, it depends what event. You could have an event for 300 people and you can have a very small team because there's one entrance. And one entrance is always the most important thing for any place, for a synagogue on a regular basis or for an event when you have creating a bottleneck you can have the proper access control for the guests coming in. But the planning, the communication with the team, walkthroughs before to make sure that everybody knows the venue, everybody knows the weak spots, have a contingency plan, have an emergency plan in case something happens. And Bill talked about this. It could be different kind of emergencies. Could be active shooter, which is the worst case scenario, but could be the fire, gas leak, anything like this. You want to make sure that everybody on the same page and the security is informed and the security knows who they contact in case of any decision, whether evacuate, shelter in place, and whatever it is.
the professionals know that the guards need to be in place and the team needs to be in place well ahead of time, right, to conduct that sweep, to do that briefing. Let's talk about lessons learned. And this is a question also for Bill. Lessons learned from these two horrible anti-Semitic attacks, homicides, really. One in Washington, D.C., 2 people shot and killed as they exited an event at the Jewish Museum. And then shortly thereafter, in June, several people were attacked. One was killed in Boulder, Colorado, at a Run for Their Lives event. So CSI did a webinar right after that, and we went into greater depth about the events and lessons learned. But what takeaways would you have or would you share? And I'm kind of thinking about perimeter security, egress, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Bill,
there are some things that really stick with me, and they happen to be important points of contention that resonate with me, and I think they're relevant to both of those incidents. First of all, I remember my parents telling me that early is on time is late, right? You need to be, particularly in the security field, the security personnel, facilities personnel, they need to be there first. So if services start at 9, the security staff needs to be there well in advance of that, because not only do they need to sweep the building, conduct a briefing, I want to, and this is something that we tend not to do, and it wasn't done during the Boulder and DC incidents, is counter surveillance is so important. Your threat, your vulnerability doesn't end at the property line. So we need to get eyes not only on the building, but the surrounding environment. Who's sitting in a car? Who's making observations? Who's watching us? And although it's resource intensive, it's super important to have that counter surveillance and counter intelligence capability by keeping our eyes focused outward to intercept any potential threat as far in advance as possible. So in your planning process, I think that's important. And had that been done in DC, perhaps that attacker could have been detected earlier because he was in the area for a significant amount of time beforehand. And had the area ahead of the runners out in Colorado, had there been an advanced sweep out in front of those runners, maybe this guy could have been detected or at least watched. I mean, Ethan and I and Dan just came back from Israel. While we were there moving through portions of the old city, we had security personnel in advance sweeping the area ahead of us. We had security personnel behind us making sure that we didn't have any vulnerabilities to our rear. So in a fixed location where you're having services, it's less complicated than that because we're not in motion, but you want to have those eyes looking outward, and you want to get out there early and be the first ones to arrive and be the last ones to leave. No security people should be leaving until the last guest, the last worshiper leaves to go home safely.
Yeah, thank you. Eldar, anything to add? I think every institution we deal with has budget constraints. And if they can, if one guard would suffice, they don't want to pay for 2 guards. And, if they could make do with 2, they don't want to pay for 3. Do you deal with pushback from that? I mean, we worry about the perimeter, but there's also the budget constraint. Do you ever hear questions about that?
Yeah, actually a lot. First of all, we never recommend to have one. We say the minimum always should be 2 officers. One has an emergency, one has to go to the bathroom. Suddenly you have nobody. So the 2 really should be the minimum for anything. And again, it comes back to the level of security that you take, the level of security you hire. You have different levels. You got unarmed, very minimal training. You get the armed with no background of law enforcement. And then you got, the armed officers whose background is law enforcement, some with more, security training, some with more experience in security. And the price and the rates varies based on that. We believe that you should have always somebody that could potentially respond, and the best way is to have the law enforcement officer background who has the ability and the experience to respond to multiple emergencies, not only the worst case scenarios with the active shooters. So it's always good to have at least one law enforcement background officer at your site at any event that you do. The second, third, fourth can be, varies based on your budget. But you have to remember that, are there securities and insurance, right? You hope you never need them, but you might. And you want to be prepared and you want to be ready in case something like this happens. So based on your doors, based on your point of entries, based on what you expect to have, do you want to have security inside the sanctuary while you know the service takes place. You want to have good presence while you have 100 people, a couple hundreds coming at the same time. You need security, and you know sometimes it comes to different responsibilities. We also want security to have help with the traffic, but we also want them to be watching the back door. One security is not suffice. They cannot do everything as much as much as they would like to. So you always have to remember that what happens in reality and when the security can be utilized the best way, or have a larger team. That's really what it is. If you want to do it right way, make sure you have security for every duty that you need, for every task that you need them to do.
Thank you. Yossi, Margaretin, we saved the best for last. I look at the list of registrants, attendees for this webinar, and the people from the Muncie area, and certainly the people from Rockland County, are probably familiar with you and the work of Chaverim. But I see we also have guests from other areas. Can you briefly explain what your organization does for the community?
Yeah, hi. Thanks, first of all, Ethan, for putting this together. And not only now, all year round, to keep our community safe. And Chaverim is the organization they started with stranded motors, like people needed help, stranded. And then as the last 26 years, Chaverim is there in Rockland County, we saw that we need to add more stuff so the organization can help out the community, like search and rescue. People who are elderly get lost, or people get lost in the woods. And then there's another part of it, which is eyes and ears in the community, which sometimes it's a language barrier. People feel more comfortable calling Chaverim, which obviously they should call 911 first. Some people have a language barrier, so we be in the middle, like taking the information and then calling right away 911 and alerting them whatever needs to notify them first. And then especially in the weekends and the holidays that we have the safety patrols, because people won't make a phone call unless if it's life-threatening. So people try not to do anything because they don't know if they can make a phone call. Sometimes they could make a phone call, but they don't know. That's why we have the safety patrol going around the entire county, not only in Muncie, which between Spring Valley, Muncie, South Muncie, Earmont, Chestnut Ridge, Montebello, Fairshade, Pomona, New Hampstead, New City, Haverstraw, New Stony Point, all these places that people can flag down one of our cars, our safety patrols. And if they need to make a phone call to law enforcement or they saw something suspicious, and they can alert them through our safety patrols. And especially in the heavy, as they say, in the middle of Muncie and Spring Valley, which we set up command posts for the holidays, which is Phyllis Tires corner, Maple Avenue. We'll have a command post over there the entire holiday, all holidays. And if somebody needs anything, you can always, any help they need it. And the same thing we have on Route 59 on Remsen Avenue. Some people can they walk up from, let's say, Good Sam Hospital. They come up 59. If they need anything, they can always reach out to our booth over there. And then the third one is in Spring Valley, which is on West Street and Maple Avenue by Tzlocha Grocery, which people can reach out to all of them. They can always dispatch one of the cars if it's a different neighborhood, and they'll reach out to any help they needed. That's in. Then we have people which were stranded in hospitals over the holidays and weekends. We provide a transportation. If people need to get released from the hospital due to they don't have money with them, they can't take a cab, or it just makes them harder to get home. So we have we call our hotline number, and they press number 2, reaches one of the non-Jewish dispatchers, and they'll get them a ride back home from the hospital, any hospital in the tri-state area.
Amazing, Yossi. I appreciate you being on this call. I know that this is a busy week for you, as well as everyone else, but really appreciate the work that you and your members do. And I'll be seeing some of them later on tonight for a training up in Muncie.
Especially, I need to tell thanks to our chief, Ram Ramapo, Danny Heim, always there to help us all year round, especially in the high holidays. Thanks, Chief, and all the officers.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Yossi. So Chief, let me turn it over to you. Really, one question before we talk about Israel briefly. So do your officers interact? Well, I know the answer is yes. How frequently, how closely do your officers interact with groups like Chaverim?
Very close. They've been a partner of the Ramapo Police Department for many years. Recently, I think you've read in the newspaper, they're an official partner with the town of Ramapo. They have a lot of equipment, a lot of resources, very well-trained personnel. So it is a real good partnership for us for what we're trying to do in the community. They have a lot of volunteers as well. So it's a great partnership that we have with Chaverim and with especially with Yossi Margaretin running this. I can call him 24/7. And actually, as the saying goes, right, it's really not 24/7, right? It's a 24/6. But I can go over to his house. I know where he lives, and if we need something, we'll get it done, no matter what time it is.
Amazing. Okay. Thank you. So some of you know that Chief Hyman, Bill Hayes, and I, as well as other law enforcement executives from the area, were in Israel for a week. Chief, regarding this trip, were there any takeaways specifically related to the high holidays, related to security issues, planning, anything that you took away or learned specifically from our trip to Israel?
Well, I would say that it's mainly the philosophy of the people who are living in that region. We spoke with them, we experienced things with them. In Israel, communities, they're living in a heightened security environment, reality all the time, not just during the high holidays. And Israelis are giving up certain conveniences, certain expectations that we would have here. They don't have them over there. They have rigorous access control wherever you go. We drove down the street and we went through checkpoints. People in the United States probably not willing to give up those freedoms, but Israelis don't look at it as a blockage to their freedom. It actually preserves their right to worship, to gather, to live their life like they want to live it. Because security over there is not just a police function. It's not just a military function. The training that we received and the things we saw show that ordinary citizens participate every day in security. Ethan, you were with me when literally around the corner from us, 2 terrorists opened up on a bus stop. People were just going to work in the morning. And on buses, it killed 6 people. They injured a dozen or more people. But it was stopped by an off-duty Israeli Defense Force person and a civilian. It's their obligation. They're legitimate. These ordinary citizens are legitimate partners to the safety and security. And they live this day in and day out. We can't expect every citizen to act on that level. It's not expected. But it is expected for citizens to be aware of what's going on around them and to report to the police what they see. When we say, if you see something, say something, it's really important. And we learned that philosophy in Israel, may have to be applied here. When you have 78% of hate crimes in Rockland County being against the Jewish community. I mean, when I got hired, we had like 2 synagogues. What do we have? We have 4 or 5 of them now in the town of Ramapo. So, it's really growing. And I know I can't hear you out there, but I'm not serious about that. I say that in jest. There's also a very high level of trust between the Israeli military, the police, and the citizens. Their model of reaction to terrorism, to harassment, to crimes against their citizens is unique. They really take their security seriously. Again, we're not at that level in the United States, but we have to start thinking along those lines, because when we work together with our citizens, and I can't say it enough how important these partnerships are, it's going to make all of our lives safer. So if there's one thing I would tell you that I took back from Israel, it's the strength of those partnerships and the willingness of citizens to be involved in their own security.
Wow. Yeah. Nicely said. Bill, how about you? Any takeaways from the trip? I mean, one thing that struck me also was the multicultural challenges to policing, right? We went to the old city where there are holy sites for different groups, you know, a couple of 100 yards away from each other. And the police superintendent who gave us the tour of the old city was explaining how complicated it could be, right? The Dome of the Rock, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the various Christian sites, as well as the Western Wall, the Kotel. Bill, any takeaways, anything that struck you during our trip?
Yeah, I mean, Israel is a very diverse society, diverse ethnically, diverse religiously, diverse politically, you know, but still at the same time, society has this unity of purpose, unity of commitment, and a resilience that even when something happens, or in engaging in preparations and prevention activities, society still goes on. You know, we were able to enjoy a normal lifestyle for the week that we were there, outside, inside, and throughout the country. So I think that's important that that there's a kind of a united focus on the threat. And granted, the threat picture is different. It's very much existential compared to here in the United States, but they unite around that common purpose of prevention and response and protecting society at large. So that was an important takeaway for me.
Thanks, Bill. I'm noticing a question from the gallery here, and this, I think, question is best answered by Chief Hyman. The question is about other police departments in Rockland County. So can you just explain briefly what the Police Chiefs Association is and your role today in representing them here?
Yes. All the chiefs in Rockland County and their second, in some cases, their third in command, are all members of the Rockland County Chiefs Association. It includes the district attorney's office, includes the sheriff, and includes representatives from the state police. So the important thing to take back from that is that we talk on a monthly basis officially. We meet monthly. We talk about issues that affect each other's departments. Because what happens, frankly speaking, you think about it, what happens in Haverstraw affects Ramapo. What happens in Ramapo affects Stony Point. Criminals don't have borders. So we need to talk, we need to have dialogue. And that is the biggest thing, the most important thing about the Chiefs Association. When something happens and we need to increase patrols in a certain area because of it, we all talk to each other and everybody helps each other out. Sheriff's Department steps up when each of us needs additional manpower, additional staffing. Sheriff Falco will be on the phone with me within minutes, or vice versa. We always take each other's calls. So it's a very important dynamic that we have here in Rockland County. Small county, but a lot is going on, and we communicate with each other. So people should rest assured to know that we do talk to each other.
Thanks, Chief. And today on this call, you're, of course, representing town of Ramapo Police, but you're also representing your colleagues, the executives from the other police departments.
That's correct.
Thank you. Do any of the panelists have anything to add at this time? I'm just looking through the questions, but if anyone has anything to add, now would be a great time. Okay. I want to thank everyone again for joining us. Again, the elected officials from the various towns and state agencies that they represent. I also want to thank our law enforcement community in advance for the heavy lift that's coming up over the Jewish high holidays over the next few weeks. We appreciate their vigilance, their effort every year, and not just during the high holidays, every day of the year. Also want to thank our community leaders, our synagogue officials, those who are involved with synagogue security, private security, really across the board. I want to thank everyone for taking the time today to join us. And we are going to, at this point, end the meeting. I want to wish everyone a Shana Tova U'Metuka. Thank you.